So here we have a 6-digit code lock I built. It uses 0 sticky pistons for the sake of the ease of building this in survival, which honestly probably just made it harder to build in survival. But I just didn't want to farm any slimes for the slime balls. And this, the only problems with this is, well, it opens relatively fast, so it's fine. But the main problems with this design is that the code is not reprogrammable at all. To reprogram the code is you have to literally destroy the closest wires here and then just move them around. So there's no reprogramming this unless you want to go out of your way to rebuild the front end of this thing. But it's fine for my purposes. It's just supposed to be a code lock, a usable code lock for my single player world. And the other main problem of this is that there are no double presses. So if I do this, but then press this twice, it doesn't do anything. I can just continue on with pressing the rest of the buttons, even though I technically put in 7 digits instead of 6. But I've spent so long on this at this point that I'm not really worried about fixing that. Now, the other thing about this is what took me a lot of work to fix is make sure you couldn't just press all the buttons and it opens. And luckily, I have fixed that. But if you do mispress anything, you have to reset it. Now, let me show you the inside of this thing. And this isn't honestly that complicated. It just took me a while to figure out how to build all of this in a relatively small enough area. I gave up on building it on a really small area. This whole section right here that stretches across this end used to just sit right here. I made it really compact and sit here earlier, but I found it too annoying to figure out how to loop all these wires around each other and get some of them to that side and some to that side. And so I just scrapped that idea and I ended up going with a much bigger design, but ultimately easier to build and will probably be easier to build in survival. So I don't really mind. Plus, I can just hide this behind a wall. I'm not really too concerned about it. But the way this works is that when you press the correct button, so make sure it's reset, when you press the correct button, the button, like, yeah, as you can see, this is how it works. To reprogram it, you would need to cut up all of these blocks here and then move them around and link them up to each end of the wires again. So you can technically change what the code is, it's just really annoying. But the way this works is that when you press the correct button, what'll happen is it sends the signal over to the end here. It's just kind of like to extend it so I can always move this wire around even if it's almost done, so I don't have to worry about that. But these ends basically extend the signal strength so that I can power this off. Now, because this one is the first input, it doesn't need anything else but to just unlock this thing right here. The way the door is locked is by these redstone torches that'll power this line and just ultimately go to close the door. But once you move the blocks out of the way, the redstone, it looks like it's hooked up. It's not hooked up anymore. It looks like it, but it's not. Um, Once you push the blocks out of the way, the redstone torch is no longer powering the redstone dust next to it. But things change a little bit when you get over to the next digit in the code, which in this case is 6. What this one does is it does the same thing where it goes here and it pushes the block out of the way of the torch, but it does a secondary action of checking up here to see if this block is in the way. I forgot to mention the blue line here does power this piston and pushes this block out of the way. because if this block was in there, what would happen is this torch, when you press the button, this torch would power on and it would send a current through this line and push this piston over and move this block over the torch, permanently powering this line until you reset the whole system again. Now, take for example, let's press 5, which is the wrong order. But if you press 5, what'll happen is this line will go through here and it'll check to see with this redstone torch to see if this block is in the way, and will power this line. And it'll still power this line. And you might go like, well, why isn't it unlocking the line? But it doesn't matter if it unlocks the line at this point, because what it's done is it's already activated this, and now the whole thing is permanently locked. So there is no easy way of guessing the code for this. You just kind of have to trial and error it. There's no way to... I'm not going to say there's no way, I don't know enough about this, but there's not an easy way to just guess the password for this. And I think there was something else. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, the reset system here. This is just a series of power lines that go across to all the separate pistons, the secondary pistons in these things, and will reset all the pistons and all the blocks that have been moved so that everything just goes back to its original state. So if I quickly go to bed, so it's not daytime, so it's daytime. If I make sure to reset the system, and again, you can press this as fast as you want to. What this will do is I can just see if I can catch this. Yeah, you can see all of these pistons moving around, and they all just push these blocks back into place. That was basically my solution to using sticky pistons. And it worked relatively fine. I think I ended up doing a pretty good job with using it. The main issues I ran into though is because I don't often work with redstone in these older versions. I forgot that a lot of the features that I've become used to just don't work anymore. So let's grab like some redstone torches, some of that, yeah. And yeah, sure. So the main feature that made this a little more one of the main features that made this a little more complicated to pull off was that you can't send power through a block. I forgot you couldn't do that. You can power it like that, but that's just connecting it up. So my solution to that in many cases was just like a series of lines like this, and that's fine. But another of the things I forgot existed in this version was bud powering. So I had to be really careful about putting pistons near redstone lines, because if the redstone line was activated and deactivated, it could keep the piston active even though it technically wasn't powered, and that's fine. I just forgot it existed. It's been a while. But ultimately, I ended up pretty satisfied with this code lock. And yeah, that's about it.